Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It's Friday, and we're going to be all over the place today. We're going to be in iPad Go 2. We're also going to be in Google Earth. And so, if you haven't heard already, Bama's involvement in the nuke crane goes all the way back to his time as senator, when he helped to cut a deal to install a bioweapons research reference laboratory in Odessa, Ukraine. Now, this is huge, you guys, because all of this seemed to have been predicted in iPad Go 2. In this iconic scene, where Bama is sweating over the little golden calf as his foot is covering the coin. Now, let's recap this in slow motion. So, Bama appears in iPad Go 2 back in 2012. And he has his shoe over this British crown. There's a crown on that coin. Identify that as the British crown, which we now know was not a UK crown at all. It actually stood for another UK, and that is Ukraine. Now, why do I say this? Well, because we matched this image of the foot over the coin with another shoe over a coin. Here it is right here. And this was a monument in Kiev, Ukraine. A monument to a book called The Little Golden Calf. And the monument is a character from the book. Here's another image of the foot over the coin. Now, if you're confused about all this, we've covered this in previous shows. I'm just giving you a quick recap. Now, the monument is of a character in the book, The Little Golden Calf. The character's name is Panikovsky, who pretended to be blind to hustle people for money. Panikovsky represented corruption in the book. Now, back to iPad Go 2, because then this lotus flower opens out of the apple, and I believe that that's Kamala, because Kamala means lotus, which is the Bo-Jivan aspect to all of this, because it's Bo-Jivan who spilled the beans, didn't he? And all of this causes Bama to be nervous and sweat as all of this is being exposed. Then we fast forward to another part of iPad Go 2, as Ukraine seems to drown in its own biohazard. And you're going to see the lotus go down with it. There's the lotus flower going down the drain into the biohazard. As everything's being exposed, there's the hammer and sickle. This has to be Russia or Ukraine, doesn't it? And then look at this scene where we have the last oil rig off in the distance. The single rig. And the electric sky. Now, what does all that mean? Well, oil production coming to a halt and being replaced with the electric kingdom. Electricity replacing oil down to the last drop. As the world switches over to electricity, and then liberty is lost. Liberty is lost the torch of liberty falling into the ocean. Now, before we get into the location of the lab in Google Earth, we're going to first read about what the checkers of fact said about these labs. Here's the article right here. And we're going to compare that to what really happened and who was involved. Because the checkers are not denying that the labs exist, but they leave out crucial elements about the history of these labs and Bama's involvement, which could be influencing his former vice president's decisions and choices in the Ukraine politics that are going on right now. Now, the article seems to focus on proving that there are no bioweapons at the lab, rather than it should be focused on the existence of the lab as a security threat to Russia, and that its secrecy and its media censorship and the study of dangerous pathogens suggests that there is more going on there than meets the eye, especially in the context of the origins of VidCo-19 and the whole debate surrounding that and where that came from. I think everybody understands what the stated purpose of these labs is, the cover story, whatever you want to call it, that it was designed only to study the deadly pathogens and B weapons. That's their stated purpose. But being so close to Russia's border, and given the NATO aggression towards Russia over the last several decades and its growth and proliferation of short-range weapons leading up to the invasion, I think any rational person could understand the concern about this network of labs. Now, to get a snapshot into the thinking behind this and what the whole big deal is and the concern about all this, think about a similar scenario on our borders. It would be like if Mexico was working with China to enrich uranium on our border, claiming that it was for power plants. And yes, all of that could be true, but it could also be used for nukes one day, couldn't it? We would not accept that, would we? We would take actions, whatever we needed to do to stop all that from happening on our borders. So, without all the aforementioned context that we just went over, I rate this misleading. Now, let's read about some of the history of Bama's involvement in the Ukraine bioweapons lab network. Found this publication here, not too much research, and there was this 2005 deal. As you can see, this is dated 2005. For anyone who wants to review this article, this is public information, where Bama and this guy, Lugar, signed an agreement with the Ukraine to set up these labs. This goes all the way back to the Senate, Bama's Senate. Let's read this. The new Nunn-Lugar biological agreement signed in the Ukraine. Ukraine Senator, it says here, Senator Dick Lugar announced that the U.S. and Ukraine have signed an agreement to counter bioterrorism. This is the official story behind these labs, and prevent the proliferation of biological weapons, technology, materials, and expertise. Scroll down here. The new Nunn-Lugar Cooperative Threat Reduction Agreement was signed here on August 29th, 2005, during the visit by Lugar, who co-authored the program with Senator Bama. So, you can understand now the concern here. Here you have the VP of Bama, which is Bo Jivan, and we have this whole thing going on over there. So of course they're going to be concerned. Russia's going to be concerned about this. We know what the cover story is, but what's stopping them this from being a possible threat? preventing the spread of biopathogens and expertise to terrorists. This high-priority initiative includes a provision for a modern, safe, and secure diagnostic health lab and national network of epidemiological monitoring stations equipped to rapidly detect, diagnose, and respond to infectious disease outbreaks throughout the Ukraine. Now, we're going to read through this slowly because there may be clues about what's going on right now. It's always good to go back in history because sometimes they get a little sloppy with how much they reveal, or don't they? That's why we're reviewing this today. Make sure you guys are with me, and we'll keep going. Okay, looks like we got a good stream here. Such cooperation is ongoing with Georgia, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and just last week, the government, Azerbaijan, signed an agreement to cooperate in this area. Unfortunately, bureaucratic obstacles in your government continue to block conclusion of such an agreement between the Ukrainian Ministry of Health and Department of Defense. This was back in 2005, but since then, as I'm going to show you, they inked the deal in 2010. It says, intervention in recent days by Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko broke a logjam within the Ukrainian government bureaucracy. So, it appears as though this was a big deal, and this could be a factor in everything going on over there and how we were so involved in wanting to make sure that their government was changed and overthrown. This could be part of the reason, or definitely a factor. So, in here they mention Odessa, which is the lab we're going to look at in Google Earth. Whoa, what does this say? Non-Luger transports dangerous germs to U.S. Transported 124 samples of 62 unique strains of causative agents of plague, anthrax, cholera, and other dangerous diseases from here to Washington, D.C. They were then moved to U.S. Armed Forces Institute Pathology in D.C. by military transport. What the heck? So, pretty much everything the Rushkins were saying is true, other than that this was going to be used as something against them. They don't say that here, obviously, but it could happen. They're moving this stuff around. This is an important cooperation between our two governments to counter the threat of bioterrorism and to prevent the proliferation of bioweapons. Let's keep reading here. Okay, pathogen collection and conducts work on many highly dangerous infective infections reported in Ukraine. So they list all of the diseases here. And I think they mention Odessa in here as well. Previous scientists at the station had been paid just $100 per month. This year, 10 employees of the center began participating in First Science and Technology Center, New Ukraine, affiliated with the Non-Luger program. The signing came as Luger and Bama visited Kiev Central Sanitary and Epidemiological Station. Now, this is interesting because a lot of you talk about Mandela effect. That's not how they spell Kiev now, but look, in this article, it was spelled the other way. Now it's spelled K-Y-E-V, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe there's a difference between this word and the other word. I don't know. Maybe the other spelling is the city and this is a region. I don't know. Now, here's what we're going to focus on today. This Anti-Plague Institute in Odessa, Ukraine. It says here at the Institute, let's see what they say about this. Luger program will expand the studying capacity to diagnose the spread of avian flu in migratory birds, a major influenza concern around the world. When we think of the major threats to our national security, the first to come to mind are nuclear proliferation, rogue states, and global terrorism. But another kind of threat lurks beyond our shores, one from nature, not humans, an avian flu spam-demic. An outbreak could cause millions of deaths, destabilize Southeast Asia, threaten the security of governments around the world. Lugar and Bama wrote in June 6 op-ed, that's 6/6 by the way, in the New York Times. In response to this threat, Lugar and Bama wrote, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee unanimously approved legislation directing President Bushwhacker to form a senior-level task force to put in place an international strategy to deal with avian flu, coordinate policy among the governments. So it's important that these labs are accounted for and protected from this conflict, isn't it? And it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. You guys, this is out of like a video game. I've seen like video games with plots like this. You know, these pathogens falling into the wrong hands during some kind of world conflict, and the people getting a hold of it and unleashing them onto different other peoples. So, earlier in the trip, Lugar and Bama visited the Rushkin Research Institute, a former biological weapons facility. So they were over there in Russia as well. So, back then, there was cooperation between the two countries. Stu Crane, Bama, and the U.S., as well as Russia. But now, things have dissolved with these two. Now, I don't know if this Lugar guy is still alive. He looks pretty old here back in these years, in 2005. But here's a continuation of the other story about these pathogens flown to the U.S. This is bombshell, you guys. This was 2005, when we were supposed to be getting rid of all this stuff. Let's keep reading here. A non-Lugar biological threat reduction agreement was signed between the U.S. Department of Defense and Azerbaijan cabinet ministers in June of 2005. In addition to the pathogen transfer, the two companies will work together, improving security of Azerbaijan Central Pathogen Health Laboratory. Non-Lugar funds will be used to enhance biological security and biosafety. Now, understand, the disagreement then came to fruition over the course of the next 5 years. The strains have been collected over many years from environmental, human, and animal sources in Azerbaijan. The strains will be studied in joint research programs with the U.S. Department of Defense and Azerbaijan medical researchers. Then in 2010, this happened. U.S. Senator Dick Lugar applauded the opening of the Interim Central Reference Laboratory in Odessa, Ukraine. That's the one we're going to look at in Google Earth. Announcing that it will be instrumental in researching dangerous pathogens used by bioterrorists. The Level 3 Biosafety Lab. Now, understand that biosafety labs only go up till Level 4. This is a lot of bad bugs running around in this lab. Once you see this lab, you're going to be like, really? That's it? But watch. It's the first built under the expanded authority of the Non-Lugar Cooperative Threat Reduction Program, will be used to study anthrax, malaria, Q fever, as well as other dangerous pathogens. Now, we talked about Q fever, didn't we? Not too long ago. And we were looking at, comparing that to this whole movement that was going on. And how it's interesting that there's a fever called Q fever. Let's keep reading here. It says the continued cooperation of non-Lugar partners has improved safety for all people against weapons of masked destruction and potential terrorist use, in addition to advancements in the prevention of spam-demics. Interesting that we're just going through all this right now, isn't it? He said the plans for the facility began in 2005 when he and Bama entered a partnership with the Stu Ukrainian officials. Both of them also helped coordinate efforts between the U.S. and Ukrainian researchers that year in an effort to study and help prevent avian flu. The Nunn-Lugar Act, which established the Cooperative Threat Reduction Program, was established in 1991. Since that time, it has provided funding and assistance to help the former Soviet Union dismantle and safeguard large stockpiles of nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons. The program has also been responsible for destroying chemical weapons in Albania. So that's the article. Now, for some reason, that article is, they've tried to wipe this off the internet. According to this here, deleted the web pages. Now, nowhere in this video do I claim that these labs are using bioweapons and actually making them to deploy on any other country. I'm not making that claim. What I'm making the claim is that they are studying these pathogens and that they are in these labs. Let's keep going, because they spent a lot of money on these labs. $200 million. This is out of India. U.S. spent over $200 million in these labs in the Ukraine. This is dated March 7th, 2022. This is a recent article. Wow. What are we really doing over there? Why are we having all these labs there? They even mentioned the lab we're going to look at in Google Earth. The Anti-Plague Institute, as you can see here, in Odessa. And they mentioned many others as well. Now, if we had the time, we would look at all these labs in Google Earth, see if we could find any clues. But for today, we're just going to cover the one lab. Now, let's move this back over here. So, Bama was specifically involved in this Odessa lab. And here we go into Google Earth. Let's take a look at this. Now here is Ukraine. Here's the country right here where the hand is. Let's zoom in on this. Now, Odessa is a huge port for Ukraine. Here's the lab. And let's go down into the street view. Now, how do I know this is the lab? Well, let me show you. Just to confirm, so I'm not making all this up. When you click on this here, which is where it's at, it brings up this. And all I did was take this and type it into, here's the lab here, as you can see. I typed this right here into the translator. Let me go back and show you that. Which is right here. And it says, Ukrainian Research Anti-Plague Institute, named after Mechnikov. So it's the same one, just so you know. Now, aside from the creepy blue color that you see on this lab, you would never know this was a lab. But it's labeled as such in plain sight. And millions of dollars dumped into this lab. Now, let's go down to the street view. Let's zoom out a little bit so you guys can get your bearings here. Very close to the ocean. Zoom out a little bit. Here's the port here, the main port. And there's a Porsche dealership right in front of the lab. The Porsche dealership is right here, as you can see. Now let's go down to the street view here. What does that say on the side of the building? Let's zoom into this. Oh, that's still Porsche. Okay, so they're using the side of the lab's building to continue to advertise on the front of there. Let's move down the street here. See if you see anything creepy. Got a few vehicles parked there. What does that say? Just some numbers there. Notice the creepy blue type of motif going on here. There's like probably the front of the lab there. We're going to go around the back of the lab as well. There's some kind of placard here. It probably names the actual lab. Now this is 2011. And I'm wondering, this is the imagery date, as you can see down here. And I'm wondering if this was before they upgraded it. No, this says 11 of 2011. Let's look at the date back on this article. So that was November 2011. Now understand that sometimes these the dates on Google are not highly accurate. But this article, yeah, it says it already opened in June of 2010. So it was a year before this image. So this should be pretty accurate. So this is it. This is the lab right here. This creepy guy walking around. Now, look at this thing. Looks like an apartment building or something. It does not look like a lab until you go around the back side of it. Zoom us back out here. Some trees in the front. Let's keep going around the block here. We get onto this side street. And look at this. Let's zoom this up here. Looks to be some kind of air conditioning units in the wall there. Some mini splits. Like an apartment building. I don't know. Doesn't really look like a lab, does it? Not to me. Here's a creepy billboard with a woman's face torn off. For any of you that speak Russian, maybe you can translate this billboard for us and what it says. It's just an advertisement, looks like, but why is her face torn off like that? Face without eyes instead of eyes without a face. Now, a lot of this stuff manifests on a spiritual level, which is why we dig deep in looking at some of this stuff, right? More mini splits. Don't see a lot of... There's actually some graffiti on the wall here. Whoa, Google Earth encountered a problem. Really? Cancel. Uh-oh. Let's try it again. Just got shut down. Wasn't that weird? Now, I was scrolling around in there quite a bit, so I'm not going to say they're trying to sabotage the show, but that was really weird how that just happened, right? Let's go back in. The street view here, around the back side of this building. Now, before we do that, understand that the official address given for this lab is 2-4 or 2/4 of this street here. So here's number 2, as you can see here, but here's number 4. So it's this weird nondescript area back here that they also own. They own this unit as well as this main building. Let's go back into the street view here. I want to look at some of this graffiti on the wall. Now here's where it can or could start to look like some kind of a lab as we go around the back side of the building. Let's look at this. Still free, it says here. Still free. And spray? Does that say spray? It's interesting that it's in English, isn't it? Bad KOA. Red Bully. Vlad or something, it says. That looks like it's in... it almost looks like a chemtrail plane, doesn't it? Whoa. Lincoln Park. Vlad. Whoa, that looks like a bomb right there. That red thing. gravity up. And now here's where you start to see things that could possibly start looking like a laboratory. Scroll out a little bit. These ventilation shafts here coming out of the side of the building. Maybe this is actually the main lab here. See all the ventilation going on up there? That's what labs are supposed to look like. This may still be occupied by people, like an apartment building, because I don't see any type of ventilation that would, you know, that's going on. Oh, actually, there's some right here, but that could be coming from the main building as well. See this ventilation going up the side here? So this is probably the main laboratory. Let's try to see if we can peek into some of these windows. Man, you never know what you're going to find with this stuff. Now, I haven't given this a very close examination as we are doing right now. I'm doing this now live because, you know, sometimes we find stuff, you guys. I don't see anything in the windows there. But this is probably the lab. Let's look at some more of this graffiti here. Look at this creepy truck. This looks like almost like a lab truck, doesn't it? Parked back here in the back portion of this. Some weird dude there in the graffiti. MS. Sniper, maybe? Lunatic. So, I am Skeeter. And that's about it, you guys. Now, what else do we have here? Well, let me show you what modern bioweapons labs look like. Let's go into this here. Here's a modern, newly built bioweapons lab. This one is Pell Laboratory, and these new architects built this, as you can see here. And you can see these ventilation shafts. These ones are internalized instead of on the outside of the building. I understand that a lot of these older buildings, you know, they don't have a way to vent right through the roof. So that's why they're probably external in Google Earth on this older building instead of internalized like this one. So, I don't know. You guys be the judge. Is this a real bioweapons lab? Is this what it would look like? I know some of you work in laboratories. Chime in the chat. Let us know what you think about all this. This definitely looks bioweapons-ish, doesn't it? All this over here. This would not be on a regular building that would be you know, used for other purposes. This would be something in like a factory setting or a chemical setting, right? But I can tell you one thing. This doesn't seem right, does it? It doesn't seem right that this much money would create this. It seemed like this thing would be much more fancy, maybe in a better neighborhood without all this graffiti on the wall and stuff like that. So it begs the question, was this some kind of laundering scheme? All this money trading hands, saying that there was something there when it really wasn't. Right? Now, something else is going on in this city of Odessa that is really weird. There are actually catacombs beneath the street. Catacombs. Let me show you what I'm talking about. These are the catacombs underneath Odessa. Look at this. They're some of the most proliferative catacombs in the entire world. Underneath the city of Odessa in Ukraine is an extensive network of tunnels believed to be the largest catacomb system in the world. Largely unmapped and spread haphazardly under the city, huge maze of underground passages extends for over 2,500 kilometers. The huge maze of underground passages extends... Oh, I already read that part. If it were laid out in a straight line, the tunnels would reach all the way to Paris. Incidentally, Paris is also the place where the world's second largest catacombs are located. So these catacombs are the most extensive in the entire world. It's difficult to say when digging underneath Odessa first started, but the catacombs were greatly expanded starting from the 18th century when Catherine the Great ordered this new port city to be built by the sea. Guess who just bought the rights to do the movie on Catherine the Great? That would be Angelina Jolie, which we've been covering extensively. An incredible amount of mining took place to extract limestone to build the city above ground. The tunnels were dug more than 100 feet below ground on 3 different levels. New shafts were created whenever old ones ran out of limestone, and it was through this process an intricate web of tunnels began to take shape. Mining continued throughout the entire 19th century and into the 20th until the outbreak of the Russian Revolution of 1917. The mines fell into the hands of the criminals and vagabonds who began to use the underground to meet and smuggle goods. At one time, these dark and dingy tunnels were even used by slave traders. When the Yazidis arrived in Odessa and began massacring the city's population, catacombs served as a hiding place for Soviet partisans fighting the Axis forces. So they've got maps of all this, extensive mapping going on here. As you can see, I actually tried to line up some of these maps, actually all of them. I tried to line them up to see if any of these catacombs went underneath the lab, but I couldn't find any that did. It's not to say that they aren't there, but this is unbelievable. There could be people living down here. You could have an entire city down here. Man, that would make a crazy horror movie, right? The people in the catacombs under Odessa. Now, here's another one here. Let me go into here. This is a site specifically designed to talk all about the catacombs. It's actually in the Ukrainian language, and it's got lots more pictures. I'll link all of this for you guys in the pinned comment. But basically, there are bats down there. Look at how creepy this is. Now, most of these catacombs are underneath the are to the west of the lab. They're to the west of the lab. Okay. Again, these are old mines. Just going to go through some of these pictures so you guys can see this. So you can see how extensive this is. A lot of it's flooded with water. I bet you some of these at the bottom are probably full of water. Like, you'd have to go cave diving to get in there. I wouldn't want to be the guy doing that. But this is a big deal. So you can almost assume. Look at the stalagmites. Wow. You can almost assume that there is possibly one of these cave systems underneath this laboratory. Wow. Now, here is what a catacomb entrance looks like. And this is out of Wikipedia page, the Odessa Catacombs. And this is what the entrance looks like. Let's make this bigger for you guys. It basically looks like something that would be underneath a house, like a basement access. They're sitting right out there in plain sight in the middle of the street. Now, as we showed you in Google Earth, let's go out of the street view here. They own both these properties. This is number 2, and this is number 4. And so it makes you wonder, did they buy this property because it had some secret catacomb entrance to it? I don't know the answer to that. But if anybody finds a map that seems to go underneath this area, very close to the ocean here, and this is actually highway, let's plug that in there. This is actually, let's turn the roads on so you guys can see this, so I can give you a vantage point as to what you're looking at here. So I'm going to rotate this so it goes north, so you can see what's going on here. we'll go back to it here. So this is Robocha Harbor. If some of you live near here, do a little investigative journalism, capture some, some video on this. I don't know. But this highway here, I believe, is Highway M16. So anything you have on M16 near the ocean, if you have any maps that line up with this biolab, you can see if there's anything underneath it. So like I said, most of the catacomb maps I could only match up to like around this area, like kind of out here. And that's possibly because it's above sea level. So, once you get below sea level, it's going to fill in with seawater, right? I don't know that to be true, but there's the 30,000 foot view for you guys, so you can see what's going on. Now, let's go back into the chat, see if you guys have any feedback on all this. So I'm interested to hear your perspective on what you think is going on over here. Now, we'll be back here on tomorrow looking at some headlines. Or, over the weekend. It might not be tomorrow, but it'll be, maybe Sunday. And I've got some bombshells for you guys. Because on Monday, we'll be breaking down a 1990s X-Files episode about a blue blood tattoo that Scully gets that causes people to sin. And why? Because the tattoo ink is infected with a ryegrass mold. The ryegrass, the copper-dominant weed that we identified as the most likely candidate for the tear mentioned in the Bible. Well, we had talked about all this, hadn't we? And someone's like, you need to take a look at this X-Files episode. I'm like, okay. I opened up the X-Files episode, and it was like they listened to our show. Of course they didn't. But it was just bizarre because it confirmed our research, didn't it? So we'll do that on Monday. Then on Tuesday, I watched the film Interview with a Vampire. And I'm thinking we should probably call it Intervoodoo with a Vampire, because there's this iconic scene in the film where the slaves rise up. They get angry because Brad Pitt is drinking their blood. And the slaves put a voodoo hex on Brad Pitt. They even have a doll. They're sticking pins in it right there in the movie. And years after the film released, Brad and Angelina Jolie returned to live in the very streets in the French Quarter where the iconic film was shot. Now we know she drinks blood because she admitted it. But she drank Billy Bob Thornton blood in her own interview. So this is weird. What's happening here? What is going on? Now we're also going to examine the voodoo Creole aspects of that whole story behind the film and Brad and Angelina Jolie's actual life. Then we're going to compare voodooism to vampirism to the current piercing ritual that the entire world is under right now. And if you don't know what that is, Tom can help you with what the piercing ritual is that's going on right now. Let's go in here into the chat and see what you guys are up to. See if you have any feedback. Now, do any of you work in these labs, types of labs, like a Bio 3 lab or higher? And, does this place look like a lab? Does it look like a multi-million-dollar lab, or is it a creepy low-budget lab? Now, I worked in a lab. Actually worked at Central Coast Pathology, if you want to look it up. For a year, I was there. And it creeped me out. People were creepy. Like the pathologist, they had like things in jars in their offices. And they were all just really creepy people. And I remember having a discussion with one of these pathologists. For some reason, they wanted me to sit down with these people, talk to them, and learn the business, right? They ended up firing me because I went home to take a dump, and the manager said, you can't do that. I go, really? If I can't go home and take a dump while I'm out in the field, then I don't want this job. Anyway, make a long story short, basically, they have the right, once the tissue comes off of your body, Once a pathology sample's collected, you lose the rights to that piece of your own body, and it falls into the rights of the laboratory. They then send this human tissue into these biobanks where they store them, sometimes indefinitely. And if you have some kind of a rare condition, they like to hold on to that stuff and study it and stick it in jars and stuff. It's really bad. It's like a bad horror movie. Going down in the basement and you see these people, all these jars lined up with creepy things in them. So I left the lab business, thankfully. Now I get to talk about them. But that's what's going on in this world, you guys. There's some strange things going on. Strange things going on. Now, we've also talked on this channel in the past about how they keep this tissue and they can actually use it in experiments. Genetic experiments. We exposed this whole thing that went on in Texas A&M, where they were using the heel prick test cards that were stored in these biobanks. They were using them in military experiments without the knowledge of the parents. And then the parents sued them. All this is public record. You can Google it right now. So, weird stuff going on, you guys. And this begs the question. If they're doing genetic experiments on tissue that has left your body already, they could recreate a clone of you, couldn't they? And this feeds right into the whole aspect of what could happen in like some of these movies, like the movie Us, where there's this whole, counterpart reality that's beneath the surface, underground. That was what that film was all about, the Us film. It was all about these people that lived underneath in a theme park. And they were exact counterfeits or counterparts, clones of the people above ground. And then the people below ground end up escaping and hunting down the people above ground that look just like them. So now your noodle is starting to think. Now you're getting it. That there's weird stuff going on in this world. Here we have a lab with catacombs nearby, where there could be whole cities of people that are clones of the people above ground. It's literally like Us in real life, the movie Us in real life, happening, manifesting in our reality. So, I'm in the chat now. I'm going to let you guys talk for a bit and what you think. Yeah, an underworld, right, Barry? Orlando, Florida says they've seen several people that look like them. We found our clone, I think. There's a guy that looks like me. He's actually on YouTube, I think. He looks like a heavier version of me, but the guy looks almost identical. Can I decode Witch Hunter? I'll try to take a look at that. Catacombs, honeycombs, pizza labs, body snatchers, us and them. Yes, Susie. I need a clone detector. There are so many movies talking about clones and counterparts and doppelgangers. Yes, Sarah. So, we're just talking about the possibilities. Anybody reviewing this channel, we're not saying anything is happening for sure. We're just, we still live in a free country. We could talk about scenarios and possibilities, can't we? Vampiric sect of New Orleans. We're going to talk about that that's going to be Tuesday, because you guys, it's crazy. Let me give you a little teaser here. What I collected already. So here's an interview with the vampire. Takes place in New Orleans, which is what they returned to. Angelina and Brad returned to this very place. There are shots in the film that almost look like the place that they bought. So we're going to break all that down next week. All right. What else do we have here? I've seen Twin Peaks. Yeah, I think we covered that years ago. Doppelgangers. Now, just to round out the conversation here, so that you don't think I'm gone off the deep end, understand that there is such a thing as a doppelganger. And it's in the Bible. Now, you can look this up yourself. Because what's happening in the Bible is that the first 7 generations of mankind exist side by side. They have almost the same names. What does that tell you? It tells you that they are connected, doesn't it, in some way. They are counterparts of one another. Let me see if I can pull it up here for you guys. Now, many of you have already seen this study before. Cain's generations compared to Adam's. Let me see if it pulls up here. This side by side. Okay. All right. Here's a good one here. Now this is creepy. Let's fix this up here. Why is it so big? Okay. All right. So, what many people do not know is that when the Bible in the book of Genesis, you can look this up yourself in the book of Genesis, when it recounts Adam's lineage, it excludes Cain. Cain's lineage is then outlined in the Bible as well. So the two bloodlines are separated. In other words, Cain is not included as the son of Adam in the way that the Bible explains the lineages. Now let's have a little fun here. Let's see if this works here. Paint tool. Let's pull out our paint tool here. Uh-oh. Did it work? We want to paint. There we go. We're going to take, let's see, size. Let's go here. Got to move that out of the way now. What we're going to do is we're going to connect the lines. Okay? So, we have in Cain's bloodline, then you have Canaan in Adam's bloodline. You've got an Enoch in Cain's bloodline and an Enoch in Adam's bloodline. Biblical doppelgangers. You have an Irad in Cain's bloodline and a Jerad in Adam's bloodline. You have a Mahujael in Cain's bloodline and a Mahalaleel in Adam's bloodline. You have a Methusael in Cain's bloodline and a Methuselah in Adam's bloodline. And finally, you have a Lamech in Cain's bloodline and a Lamech in Adam's bloodline. What do we have here? All of them connect. Look at this, almost looks like squinting eyes, doesn't it? Their eyes were blinded in the middle here. Anyway, crazy times, you guys, crazy times. So there's something to this counterparting. And I believe that this has come all the way down to modern times. And I don't claim to understand the exact nature of this or how this manifests or what it actually means on a spiritual level. I don't know. But I can tell you there is a dark side and a light side. And it's in the Bible. All right. Yes, Cain is a corrupt seed. He's been marked. Yes, Meredith. And understand that here we are down through all time. And it's probably the case that all of us have some taint in our bloodlines. The only bloodline that remained completely pure, as we know, based on what the Bible tells us, is Jesus' bloodline, the seed of the woman. And this is why God made a special covenant with those people, the ancient Hebrew 12 tribes. He told them, do not mix with the Canaanites. Now, understand that that was a specific set of rules that he had for those people, the seed of the woman. Because some people criticize the Bible and say, look, God was a racist because, he told them not to mix with other races. Well, that was for a specific reason and with a specific covenant of people. And then you can track the bloodline from the tribe of Judah, all the way down to the parents of Jesus. It's all connected. He was the seed of the woman, and the bloodline had to remain pure so that he could be born and be a sacrifice to save both bloodlines, the Jews and the Gentiles, for all who believe in him. You see how important all of this is? Just because you're of the Canaanite bloodline doesn't mean you don't have salvation, but you have to make a choice, which is exactly what God told Cain, didn't he? He said, "Why are you sad?" I'm paraphrasing here. "Why are you sad? The evil is crouching at the doorstep for you, but you have a choice to choose good." So, when people ask me, what about people with red hair? What about this or what about that? It doesn't matter. It might matter that you might have an extra dose of the Canaan and you might have to work a little harder in your life to choose good. That could be a factor, but to me, that would give me solace. That would help me feel better about sin in my life, to be able to get rid of it, but also to go, you know what? This is why I battle with this or that, right? It should give you solace, and it should empower you to choose good, because then you realize where the source of whatever is inside of you is coming from. And it should help you to appreciate the sacrifice Christ made so that we can all be saved. The wheats and the tares growing up together until the end, and that's when you're judged. So this is encouraging information. This isn't supposed to be, oh, you're of that race and you're of this race, and we're not supposed to be doing that. We're not supposed to be, isolating and elevating certain races and downing other races. That's totally against what Jesus taught. Totally against it. Yes, Genesis, Revelation, the tethered. We're tethered somehow across these bloodlines. Who knows? I don't know. This is really weird. Really, really weird. Okay, let's go back in the chat. I'm talking too much over here. Okay. Once you accept Christ, your DNA is corrected. I would say yes on like a spiritual level. I don't know if there's a supernatural change, but basically think of it as a timeline. Okay, so once you accept the gospel, you're saved. The battle's already won for you. So it doesn't matter what you're made up of, because all of our flesh is going to be renewed, isn't it? It's all going to get burned up in the fire, and it's going to be created out of untainted dust, uncorrupted dust, uncorrupted, where the sin is removed, the leavening is removed from the bread. There won't be any more leavening in the bread. We'll be made whole and clean and new. I don't think that God would create us out of this old sin-filled dust anymore. That's the whole purpose of it. Right? Now, if you have any questions about how the Bible ties into all this, we have a lot of great biblical researchers in the chat right now. And if you don't get help here in the chat, then in the comment section, ask your questions of how the Bible relates, and many people will come forward to help you. Rebecca is really good at biblical knowledge, as well as Tom, the moderator, and there's many, many others in here. And if you have questions about anything that I've said, that I've quoted from the Bible, they can actually give you scripture and verse about what I'm talking about, because I don't make any of this up. And the shows are full of biblical references. I actually had someone come on and say, you spend too much time in this dark stuff and you don't go enough in the Bible. You guys, the entire show is about the Bible. It's just you have to be listening for it. Everything we're talking about is from the Bible. We're just comparing it to what's going on right now and how the enemy is deceiving us through entertainment and Hollywood. And if you fail to look at that, if you fail to make the connections, then Hollywood will deceive you, just as it has billions of Christians around the world who think that they're doing the right thing, and they are, by gathering to go to church and thinking they're hitting all the, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's and being a good Christian. But then there are the very same people who still celebrate pagan holidays. They still take their children to Disneyland to be programmed. They still vote in elections for candidates that they think are God-based. They're still deceived. Why? Because they don't watch decodes like this. And because people are telling them, don't watch that stuff, it's too dark. So now you know why we do what we do here. Because it's all about the Bible. You guys, most people walk through this life, they don't even realize that 99% of entertainment is about the Bible. It's the enemy trying to reshape the image of the Bible into his own image. And so, if most people don't even understand that the enemy is trying to rewrite the Bible through Hollywood, then they're lost already, because they're being deceived and they don't even know it. They don't even know it. That's why we have to look at this stuff. And you know what? If you can at least convince somebody that 99% of all Hollywood productions are about the Bible, that alone would wake people up. Because then they would say, you know what? Hollywood sure does spend a lot of time trying to say God doesn't exist. Why are all the movies about God then? Right? So, I reject those criticisms about this channel boldly. Because this is what has to be done. This is hard work. You think I enjoy watching this stuff? I was nauseous watching the interview with the vampire. It was the most disgusting movie I think I've ever seen. There were hints of children. And people of the same thing doing things. I mean, it was just disgusting. So I'm going to try to, when I present it, I'm going to try to, I guess censor it. Because I don't want you guys to have to see all that and have that in your brain. But we do need to take a look at it. Because it's everything we're going through right now. This pricking ritual. It's all connected. And it's all from old bloodletting rituals that the enemy has done throughout time. Now, why would the enemy be involved in bloodletting rituals? Well, it's to mock God, isn't it? It's to create a counterfeit of God's sacrificial system that was necessary for a specific people. The seed of the woman. So the enemy creates his counterfeit of it, which is dark and evil, has nothing to do with atonement for sins, has everything to do with just sacrifice for no reason. And basically, he's trying to mock God and blaspheme God by creating his version of a sacrificial system. And that's what it's all about. And what we're going through right now is the same thing. Why do you think there's two? Why do you think there's two piercings that happen with this ritual we're in right now? Because those are fangs, aren't they? Fangs. Look up fangs and compare them to needles. You'll be shocked. They're both hollow. They both deliver a type of medicine. Just crazy. All right, you guys, I'm going to pop off of here. It's Friday. Max wants me to take him to Heavenly Donuts. We're going to get some cake donuts. It's one of the first things he asked for when he got here. Hey, Dad, is there cake donuts around here? I go, wait, son, you don't like cake, but you like cake donuts. So this is our little weekly thing that we do. I don't need any more donuts, but he's 22 and he's about 140 pounds, so I want to feed him donuts. Anyway, I love you guys. I hope you guys all have a great weekend. And take care and be safe. I'll see you guys over the weekend. I'll probably do a pre-recorded show with some of these headlines I have pulled up. And we'll get back into it. Take care and be safe.